Better to be dead and cool than live and uncool.
Welcome to a special edition of Joe Bremmeier Presents right here on Neoplex Wrestling. And I am with local legend, I would say more Midwest legend and beyond, Juan Fourneau, better known as Latin Thunder.
Latin Thunder, that's right.
A very well-known name in the professional wrestling world, especially on the indie circuit. You've been around for a while, Juan.
Yeah, been part of the Midwest indie scene for a long time, since the late 90s. So, yeah.
It's
definitely
great to see you again.
Well, thank you.
I feel like you and I have interacted just kind of like ships in the night over the years.
Probably
you know?
at the local Y in Muscatine. I might have, if I remember, you were an ambitious young man selling some supplements. And yeah, that was a while back.
That was a while back.
Yeah.
I was out peddling pills, potions, lotions, and powders and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Probably early 2000s. So, yeah, I'm a graduate in 1991, so I always like to get an idea of, like, people's generation. When did they start watching wrestling? And because I'm a 80s kid and grew up watching a lot of great 80s wrestling. I see you got some cool stuff here, but yeah, I've been part of the Midwest indie scene since the late 90s.
That's crazy. You graduated high school when the Metallica Black in high school.
Yeah, I know you're a gym guy. Doug McConaughey, a mutual friend of ours, had a gym called Park Avenue Fitness back in the day. It wasn't on Park Avenue; it was in downtown Muscatine. Explain that, Doug. But yeah, I remember working out there, and back in the day, I remember for sure there was 2 albums you could listen to. One was AC/DC, Back in Black, I believe, and Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses. That was it.
That was it.
Yeah. So, and then soon after was some Metallica. But yeah, back in the day, training at Doug's gym there when I was a young man, and trying to gain some size, some gains with a Z, as the young guys say these days. But yeah, I was just trying to get up to 200 pounds so I could try to become a pro wrestler. So.
Isn't that funny? Why is it when you're a young man and you get into lifting weights, like 200 pounds body weight, like, and still look pretty lean? That's the benchmark. That's the goal, that's where you wanted to hit.
Yeah, for me, it was dreaming of being a pro wrestler and reading the wrestling magazines, because that was my generation's things. You would walk downtown to downtown Muscatine and Con's newsstand, and I'd read Pro Wrestling Illustrated and Inside Wrestling and read the wrestling magazines, because, of course, no internet. So that's how you got your information about, hey, Ric Flair's the new NWA world champion. He defeated Harley Race at Starrcade. That's how you found out, was through the wrestling magazines. And at that time, they would have the listings, of wrestler Ric Flair from Minneapolis, Minnesota, 235 pounds. So as I started to consider being a pro wrestler, I noticed that there was no one listed at less than 200 pounds, back in that day, back in that era. Yeah, this is before Rey Mysterio. This is before Nitro and the Luchadors of WCW changing everything, before 1-2-3 Kid. So the Tim Horners and the Brad Armstrongs, who were the small wrestlers, the Marty Jannettis, people like that, they all weighed at least 200 pounds. So I was like, hey, if I want to be a pro wrestler, I guess I have to at least weigh 200 pounds. So
that's great.
That started one of the journeys to try to get into this crazy business.
Well, before we get too ahead of ourselves, we've got Katie in here with us too. She's going to help run the thing. And then Katie, keep an eye on our device there. Make sure we don't run out of storage, because I've been pumping that baby full of storage. So keep an eye on that. And Katie might jump in too with a few little, I don't understand wrestling things. But there again, welcome to the show, man. I've been actually really looking forward to this conversation, and I want to jump right into the luchador thing here. So you always perform. You're a luchador, right? Is that how it works? Like,
I'll be honest with you. Just like anything else, in you and I are bodybuilders, right? We bodybuild. That's how we train. But are we really bodybuilders, right? I mean, who do we consider to be bodybuilders, right? It's someone that stepped on stage. So to me, I have worked out and had matches with true Mexican luchadors. And I'll be honest with you, I don't consider myself at that level. But when I decided to put on the mask and become the Mexican luchador for the Midwest, for Iowa, Latin Thunder, I mean, to me, that was kind of my thing, is I'm going to be a Mexican luchador, but also, hey, I'm a Midwest guy, and I'm born and raised in the United States, so it's going to be a different flavor. And I was trained in Texas which has a lot of Hispanic wrestlers. So my style is a little bit of a hybrid. But do I consider myself a luchador? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
How many masks do you have? Like, you brought in a few of them in here.
Yeah.
Are these all ring worn?
Yes, these are. The purple one I've probably worn the most in the ring. I've wrestled in that probably around half a dozen times. A gentleman by the name of Luis Lopez from Chilanga Mask. Chilango means someone from Mexico City. So Chilanga Mask, Luis is from Chicago and Mexico City, originally from Mexico City. He was a luchador, and now he makes great wrestling masks. You can see that craftsmanship's amazing. This mask here is just one that he made for me because I was ordering several masks, and I said, hey, just make me one that's original, one that's your own style.
How do you even see through that thing? There's barely any, like, this one you can obviously see through.
Yes. Yeah.
And clearly you can breathe okay through this one.
Yep.
But as I look at that one, can you see? Oh, I guess you can see good enough to have a match in.
Yeah, that mesh is made of a special material, and you are able to see through it. Your visibility isn't the best, but it's still good enough to be able to wrestle in. And honestly, that was a change because I did not put on the mask until I was 40 years old. So I had wrestled on the indie scene for many years as Latin Thunder Juan Fourneau. But putting on the mask was took a little bit of time. It's interesting because at Mercado and some of the SCW shows and some of the indie shows, a lot of guys will put on a mask for the first time for maybe a Lucha Libre event. And they always are like, it's so hot. Hey, I'm having trouble breathing. I'm having trouble seeing. It really does take an adjustment to put on a mask. And it was an adjustment for me. Honestly, it wasn't too bad because I went that extra mile and said, hey, I'm going to get a mask to my size, to my forehead, to my measurements. So it wasn't too bad for me, but definitely I prefer to wrestle in a mask that has some mouth to breathe through, a nose. But when it's hot out, big respect for those great luchadors in Mexico who wrestle in arenas with no air conditioning. In Mexico, you're talking about 110, 120 degree heat in those arenas in masks. A lot of respect after I put on a mask.
All right, let's dive right into it.
Sure.
The luchador thing has me sometimes scratching my head a little bit from a marketability standpoint.
Yeah.
Because when I watch the product on TV, when I watch WWE, when I watch Monday Night Raw, there's only a couple luchador sprint. I mean, Penta is definitely the hottest ticket in town right now when it comes to the luchadors, yep. I believe. And certainly Rey Mysterio goes without saying.
Legend, yep.
But in Mexico, damn near everyone wears a mask. Or does everyone wear a mask? Is that like a thing? Like like AAA Wrestling down in Mexico, does everybody wear a mask?
I would say probably 90% of them wear a mask. There are some that don't, or some of them that have lost their mask and are still able to keep a career going, which is a little bit rare.
What do you mean lost their mask?
So in Lucha Libre, one of the great things that Lucha Libre has is a mask versus hair match. Máscara contra cabellera. So mask versus hair. They also have mask versus mask, máscara contra máscara matches, where one wrestler will put up their mask against another person's mask and say, whoever wins this match gets to keep their mask and their identity, and the other person must unmask and display their face. And usually when that happens, if someone loses a mask versus mask match and they have to unmask, usually their career is honestly probably over. And it's pretty rare that they're able to have a good career after that.
Oh, see, that's wild to me.
Yeah.
Because to me, and I didn't grow up watching Mexican wrestling.
Sure.
Everybody kind of blends together.
Yeah.
And to me, I would almost want to be maskless in a world of masked wrestlers in Mexico. I would think that would make you stand out more. But it's intriguing to hear you say, you're kind of on the back end of things when you're wrestling without a mask in Mexico.
In Mexico, yeah. There are a few. Conan, which I'm sure you're obviously familiar with from the WCW days, was a big star, Conan. He lost his mask in Mexico during a really hot period of Lucha Libre. In the mid-90s, AAA was a very hot product. Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, Psychosis, Conan, before they even went to WCW, were really on fire. The Mexican economy was really good. There was a lot of things happening in Mexico at that time that really created a golden era there for that wrestling. he lost his mask in a match, and his career thrived after that, which is really, really rare. So it does happen. Conan had a great physique, had a lot of things going for him. He spoke English and Spanish as well. But yeah, for some people, they're able to keep their career going, but generally speaking, it's towards the end of their career, or it means the end of their career. You know, Mexican fans just love the mask, the mystery of it.
Really?
Yeah, the intrigue of it. And when you think about it from a United States perspective, we love superheroes like Batman and the Flash. What do they have? They have a mask. They have a secret identity. And I think Mexican fans often have that same mystique and interest in their wrestlers that way. They love the mask. They love that there's an identity behind it, and it creates a mystery and a mystique to them. So that was the reason I decided to put on the mask, was because it's such a strong part of Mexican culture. El Santo, Mil Máscaras. You know, interesting because as far as how Americans view it, I had dinner with Nick Bockwinkel once, the great Nick Bockwinkel, who was the AWA world champion in the late 70s, early 80s, a legend in wrestling.
Okay.
And I had asked him, I'm like, did you ever see Mil Máscaras with his mask off? And he said, oh, yeah, because it's very hard to find a picture of Mil Máscaras without his mask on. He's one of the top 3 legendary Mexican wrestlers. He said, Juan, I didn't understand it. He had movie star good looks. He's like, why would you cover that up? You know, he was a very handsome man.
Yeah.
And he's Alberto Del Rio's uncle. And Alberto Del Rio,
Yeah, that guy's decent looking guy.
Yeah, right. So he says he looks a lot like Alberto Del Rio. But from that American perspective, in American wrestling, they would put on a mask when a guy wasn't very attractive. So if a guy was like Mr. Olympia, was known as being kind of an ugly guy, they're like, we're going to put a hood on you because you got this great physique, you can wrestle, but holy cow. Or Mr. Wrestling 2, who was a big star in the 70s and on Georgia Wrestling, he also had kind of a goofy, nerdy-looking face. His facial expressions were weird. He was never a star. He put on the mask, became Mr. Wrestling 2, became a star. That's how American promoters and wrestlers looked at the mask. So Nick Bockwinkel couldn't understand why this handsome Mexican man with movie star good looks would put a mask on, because to him it would hurt your marketability. But in Mexico, made him a huge star, and when he went to Japan, he became a big star. And to this day, he still wears the mask and never lost it in a match. You know, so
well, and the other part that I find interesting about the masks that I didn't really connect the dots until a couple years ago. The mask is also a good training tool for what will become a top potential earner in professional wrestling, but they want that person to get the reps in.
Yeah.
And you can almost practice in disguise.
Yeah.
Before then your character that everybody has in mind without a mask can come out and be a polished wrestler. Does that happen quite a bit?
I don't know if it happens often, but Hercules Hernandez, who was a big star in the 80s, wrestled Hulk Hogan on Saturday Night's Main Event.
Hercules, the guy that would swing the chain around.
Great,
and
again, big, huge guy, great physique. He wore a mask in Mid-South Wrestling.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he was, I think, an assassin also.
And he was a huge, jacked guy, but it's funny. You put the mask on, and he's just another big jacked guy. And
he was a very green wrestler. He was still learning, and that gave him an opportunity in those 2 scenarios to wear a mask and not really, hey, he's a green wrestler. He's still learning, and then he loses it. He goes to other places, and he's Hercules Hernandez, and boom, he's a star then, because he did, as you said, have a couple years to work on his trade, to polish himself in the ring. So it has been used as a tool sometimes, especially by American promoters that way. So I have seen some second-generation wrestlers in Mexico, like El Hijo del Santo, other folks that they're like, hey, you're my son, you're going to get to wear this mask, but you're not starting. Your first match isn't going to be as El Hijo del Santo. We're going to put you under a different gimmick, a different mask, and then once you're good enough, then we'll give you this mask after that. But
where did it all, do you know the history of it?
It's weird. This is the history that I've read, and I do believe it to be true. I'm certainly not a historian. It was actually a Texas wrestler, an American guy, a white guy, who went down to Mexico and put on a hood and wore a mask.
Like a ski mask type of thing?
I think it was like a very rudimentary mask, a leather-type mask, and then people liked it in Mexico. And the other Mexican wrestlers were intrigued by it as well, and they began to wear masks. But it was actually, I believe, an American white wrestler from Texas who wrestled in Mexico, and the Mexican fans and the other wrestlers thought that was cool. And I believe the promoter also thought that was interesting. And that was really the start of Mexican wrestlers beginning to wear the masks. And then it just turned into something that was almost cultural, you know, and its impact. Because if you go to London, you go to Japan, that symbol of a Mexican mask, it's known all over the world.
Sure.
It's like tequila, it's like mariachis, the sombrero. It's really part of Mexican culture that's known globally. So it's become part of our culture, you know, so it's pretty cool.
I dropped the ball. I should have had some tequila sitting here
Some
for
tequila,
us.
yeah.
We've got all these luchador mats. We could have had some tequila sitting here. Katie, why
tequila.
didn't we have any tequila? You knew Latin Thunder was coming in here.
That's all right. Little tequila. I'd probably be slurring my words after a little while.
All the more reason to come back.
Yeah, so no. But
Well, and I've noticed my face gets a little red when I'm having some drinks anymore. It's probably because I'm just getting old, and with all the lights in here too, it looks like I'm a cranberry merchant sitting here.
yeah, my filter would go away even worse. So yeah, we don't need that. We don't need that.
Yeah, and I feel like the mask conversation is relevant, and I hate to keep talking about it, but I want to keep talking about it. Like in the world of professional wrestling, where facial expressions and inflection points and just the emotion you can see on people's faces, that really sells a storyline and it sells the product. And when it comes to wearing a mask and being a luchador, you're I don't want to say but you're predominantly relying on your athletic ability and your in-ring performance to do all the talking. That's not easy these days because there's athletes everywhere.
Yep. And I heard Conan talk about that once on a podcast where he said supposedly McMahon didn't like masked wrestlers, Vince McMahon. And because of that reason, you have to use your facial expressions. And how can you
You're
do
telling
that?
a story.
Exactly. But that's when he did use them, such as Mil Máscaras. He used Mil Máscaras a lot and was a big fan of him. And he used Rey Mysterio. You had to be really special. You had to be fantastic for him to say, yeah, you're going to wear a mask. I'm not going to mess with it. That's part of your character, because he was a big fan of the facial expressions and selling through your emotions through that face. So you really do have to become even better as a wrestler, as a performer, and how your body tells a story. The one thing that happened in the 90s too, I thought that really changed things, was guys like Eddie Guerrero didn't wear a mask, but he spoke great English. Rey Mysterio spoke great English. Here in the United States, your ability to get on the mic and talk, it's so critical. It's same thing. You don't have to be great on the mic, but it's 90% of your top main event guys can talk. And if you're not a good talker, it's because you're really special. I always think, like, for people who aren't good talkers, I think of Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Bill Goldberg, and Kerry Von Erich. None of those three were great on the mic. Some of them were actually terrible, but they still drew big money.
Yeah, they all had a good gimmick too.
Yep, good gimmicks, great in-ring performers, amazing physiques. There was something about them, but that's how special you have to be. If you're crappy on the mic, if you're not good on the mic, then your other skills have to be phenomenal, right? And those three did have that. So,
yeah, it's interesting you say that, because like when I look at the current roster right now, I'll look at Asuka, for example. Tremendous female wrestler.
Yep.
Tremendous. Insane athlete. But I can't relate when she cuts a promo. Yep. She'll muddle her way through a couple, English words here and there, so we kind of know where she's going. But then it always ends with a high emotion, in Japanese, and then you're like, okay, I understand she's upset about something. But, and that's, you see a lot of Mexican wrestlers do that too, that maybe they'll mix in a little bit of Spanish and English.
Yep.
So that's interesting as well.
Yeah. I got to interview Tito Santana and got to meet Tito Santana.
There you go. There's another one.
Texas, from Texas, and border town down in Texas. Great athlete, played football, played even in the NFL. Good physique, good size, spoke excellent English and Spanish. So you got to have it. The more of those skills you have, the better. Tito was also unique in that he had size. Mil Máscaras also had size. Most Mexican wrestlers, not big guys, especially back in the day. If you're 5'7", you're 5'8", you're going to have a tough time getting in the ring with those monsters like Hulk Hogan or King Kong Bundy. Tito had the size, and again, NFL football player, good athlete, tough. He weighed about 235 pounds. So a lot of the Hispanic wrestlers, they struggled with with their English, or they just didn't have that height or that size. So if you were someone special like Mascaras, Conan also, and Tito, you were able to be a main event star, but there wasn't very many of them, you know. But Eddie Guerrero also changed the game by showing that a smaller guy could become WWE champion. Paid a heck of a price to put on that size to be that guy. But he did change the business and opened a lot of doors for Latino wrestlers.
He was super jacked.
Oh, yes.
I mean, he was getting after it for sure.
Yes, he knew that was going to be key and hard for him to do, but he got it done. And his in-ring talent was always amazing, you know. But I got to meet Hector Guerrero, one of his brothers. Chavo Guerrero Sr., his older brother, was also a fantastic wrestler. And the old man, the dad, Gory Guerrero, was a legend in Mexico as well. So when my kids got to meet Hector, and I said, you know, he was a very, very good wrestler, and he was the fourth best Guerrero. I mean, that's how amazing that family was.
Is Dominic Mysterio Rey Mysterio's actual biological son?
I believe so. Yes.
That they have done such a good job. I mean, I'm kind of a nerd fan. Like I try to pay attention to that stuff, but I'm like, is Dominic Mysterio Eddie Guerrero's son?
Yeah. Gives you just a little bit of wondering, right? It gives you just enough the storyline and the history between it, and then you see the personality of Dominic, and you're like, is this really Ray's son? Yeah, it gives you just enough, right? To make you wonder, you know. So, which is what you want in pro wrestling, you know.
Let's talk about you.
Yeah.
I mean, I can talk to those guys when they're sitting here in the chair.
No problem.
What's going on in the here and now with Latin Thunder and your wrestling career?
Well, my wife likes to joke about how I'm retired because I did wrestle Cornboy, Kevin Gutierrez, at SCW Pro and Bluegrass.
Was that this past Saturday?
No, I did wrestle Friday and Saturday, so much for my retirement. But in 2022, I think it was in the fall of 2022, might have been 23, we had a mask versus hair match, a máscara contra cabellera match. We wanted to bring a little bit of history to Iowa. And as far as we know, All America and others have said too, it's the first known mask versus hair match between two Latino wrestlers. So
in the state of Iowa.
In the state of Iowa, yeah, we wanted to bring
that. Cool.
Yeah, we wanted to bring that piece of Mexican Lucha Libre to SCW Pro to Iowa, and we had a great match in front of a great audience at the Bluegrass Community Center. It was packed house, and I lost, and I had to unmask, and that's when I revealed that, hey, this is Juan Fourneau. In the days of the internet, it's not that hard to, if you really want to look.
I can scroll down your Facebook page fairly quickly and find a picture of you.
You could hit Google and you could figure it out, right? But there were still people who there was enough intrigue of what's he look like? Who is this person? A lot of kids didn't know. So we had that match, and I lost. And then after that, I said I was kind of finishing up. And I did kind of wind down after that. I've had some matches since then. I wrestled again this Friday in Moline and Saturday in Ottumwa, but they were pretty 6-man tag matches, an 8-man match.
You're not taking huge bumps right now.
No, I really the last year or two I feel like I've aged quite a bit. But the initial thing that made me decide to quit getting in the ring was just head trauma. I've never had a concussion, but I could definitely feel vulnerable. You know, I could feel like, man, and we know so much more about concussions. We know so much more about brain trauma now than we used to. When I went to wrestling school, October 5th, 1994. That's when I showed up to wrestling school in Dallas, Texas. And your big thing you were concerned about was your neck. You knew there was a danger if you did something really stupid in the ring, or there was a bad accident of breaking your neck, being paralyzed. That was what we were worried about. And of course you're worried about your knees and your ankles, your elbows, right? But no one thought about, hey, your brain. No one thought about concussions. No one thought about that. And as you get older, you begin to feel vulnerable. You begin to realize you're not going to live forever. And you know, I'm not a super intelligent guy, but I'm kind of a bright guy, and I have some investments. I want to do things when I get older. I'm a writer. So I want to do things with my mind, and I wanted to keep my mind sharp. And if I get to live in my 70s and 80s, I wanted a sharp mind. And it became pretty obvious that this stuff in the ring isn't good for your brain. And those guys were just getting younger, stronger. One of the reasons I put on the mask, not to go back to the lucha, but one of the reasons I put on the mask was I was 40 years old, and I was still, thanks to bodybuilding, thanks to working out, thanks to this great hobby and love of pumping iron, I still was in shape. I still could wrestle, but your face shows your age. And I'm in
Well,
there.
yeah, I guess.
does.
Yeah, sure does. Yeah.
And typically, when you're getting older, you're a heel. The baby face is the good guy because he is. He's
Sure.
got a baby face. He's a young guy. So it was hard to get in the ring and tell a good story as showing this. And I was a heel. And I was like, man, I want to be a good guy. I want to be a baby face. I want to be marketable. And I want to keep wrestling. And how can I have people cheer me? The face, and again, Conan has talked about this. It makes you ageless. Like when you've seen some of those Mexican luchadors take off their mask, you're like, man, that guy looks old. But before he takes off the mask, you're like, man, he's in shape. He wrestles great. It does give you longevity in the sport. But it began to turn against me because I was wrestling. I remember wrestling the Devil Dog, Dustin, in West Liberty, Iowa. And I'm maybe 50 at that time, 49. It's hot. It's a summer county fair show. Dustin actually likes me. Dustin and I are friends, but Dustin is a guy who spent 4 years in the Marines. He was going to be a drill instructor. He's an intense guy. He's in great shape. How old are you, Joe?
43.
43.
Going on 16.
Okay.
Hopefully.
But so you know, like the difference between someone who's 28 years old, 25 years old, and is training hard, and you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're in shape. Yeah, you work out. There's a difference.
Things ache a little.
They do. And when
Yeah.
you're in there with a 28-year-old stud of an athlete who's big, in their prime, who trains hard, who's an intense person, and they're chasing their dream, and you're like, hey,
Slow down there, fella.
Yeah, it's like trying to have a tiger by the tail. And, you know, a lot of old timers talk about wrestling the Road Warriors for the first time and how those guys were young. And, you know, Dustin actually, again, he liked me. He respects me. But you get him in front of a fired up crowd, and as strong as he is, he don't know how strong he is, you know. That was really man, I can't. It's not fair to this guy. He's trying to become a WWE superstar. He's excited and pumped to be wrestling in front of this great crowd, and I'm trying to just survive a little bit, you know. And he'd hit me with that spear, or I'd take those spears from some of those guys like Dion, and it's like, man, you know, this is getting tough. No matter how hard I work out, no matter how well I train, no matter how good I eat, you're still a 50-year-old dude.
Have you ever had to give a young guy a receipt?
Oh, sure.
Yeah?
A time or two, yeah.
Tell me more.
I mean, receipts happen. The few receipts I've had to give is because guys were just being sloppy in the ring and hit me, you know, too hard or hit me for real without even realizing it. And you just got to, you know, wake them up and say, hey, lighten up.
Yeah.
And you give them a receipt. And usually that was the end of it, honestly. And, you know, it's happened a couple times. I don't think I've ever had a receipt given to me, thankfully. So, because I always wrestled safe.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like Bret Hart. I took pride in having safe matches and not doing crazy stuff. Because I always was like, the whole purpose of a wrestler is you're supposed to wrestle tomorrow. If you make it to the show, right? You're wrestling on Saturday. Well, you got a match Sunday. Maybe you got 2 matches on Sunday. The whole thing is you got to wrestle tomorrow. So let's have this match be a good match, entertaining match, but we got to take care of our bodies in there.
You can still get out of bed without too many groans in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. So,
you know,
so that's the goal.
You kind of took me down memory lane a little bit there when you were talking about these younger guys that are coming in with a full head of steam going into a match. Pre-COVID, I was really enjoying some martial arts training.
Mm-hmm.
I had been doing it for a couple years, and they would always talk about the white belts that come in. And I was the same way. When you come in, especially when you're grappling, or sparring, you just want to go balls out, right, against some purple belt.
Yeah.
You know, and man, I was sparring an old guy, and I was going just way too hard, and boy, he popped me a good one. Man, I got a nice shiner, and he's like, I told you to slow down, dude.
Yeah.
I told you to slow down. And that's like that's a real life receipt right there.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, and I could see the differences between those sports, but yeah, it's the same thing where you got to let people know, hey, the goal is to do this tomorrow. The goal is for us to walk out of here healthy. Yeah, and you were just sparring, so hey, this isn't.
This ain't a real. We're not trying to knock each other out here, man.
Exactly right. There's a purpose to this training, and one of the purposes is to not get hurt. So yeah, absolutely, yeah, that's definitely something similar.
It's funny because like one guy feels like he's got so much to prove, and you don't feel you don't come across as anybody that's got anything to prove at this point. It's like, hey, let me help elevate these guys up.
And to me that was. I've heard CM Punk use the term player coach, and those last 4 years that I wrestled, I loved getting in the ring with the young guys. I did enjoy like having some of their first matches. Maybe they had 4 matches under their belt, and hey, you have to get better at anything. You got to wrestle with someone that's better than you. And I had more experience, and hey, let me show you, we can have a safe match out there that's still entertaining, that gets the crowd fired up. And the more, if you got a great mask, if you got good gear, if you're in shape, if you're tan, if your skills are good, if your arm drag is sharp, you can have a really good, entertaining match with just some tackles, with some arm drags, with some good fundamental wrestling, as long as your fundamentals are good. And we walk out with the crowd entertained and our bodies intact. That's the goal of pro wrestling, And a lot of times they're like, hey, I want to try this move, or let's do this crazy. No. You're not doing that in the match with me, that's for sure. And I'm going to show you how to have a safe match, because hopefully you have hundreds of these, maybe thousands, right? And in order to do that, you got to keep your fundamentals good. And if you have talent, if you have skills, you don't have to do the crazy stuff. You don't, if you have a good physique, you can make yourself marketable. A lot of those things, your success happens before you even get to the arena. Did you put the work in? Is your cardio good? Are your facial skills good? Is your gimmick good? Are you good on the mic? Again, I've always been a fan of wrestlers like Tony Atlas and, the guys with the great physiques, Kerry Von Erich. So, but do you hit the gym? That makes you more marketable. It makes you have more of a presence. All that before we even lock up.
Do you sometimes get frustrated looking at some of these younger guys that are trying to make it, that clearly aren't hitting the gym the way they should hit the gym?
Some, yeah.
Like, do you see someone that's got so much talent, and you're like, dude, clean up your diet and go lift some weights?
Yeah, I mean, that's generally speaking, that's part of the business. There's going to be some folks who don't, but usually 70 or 80% of the guys, you have to train, you have to work out. That's part of looking like a wrestler. There's always going to be a few people who have a great gimmick, have so much charisma they don't have to do it. But I'm definitely from the school of, hey, you have to work out, you have to stay in shape, you have to look like a wrestler. I wanted to look like a wrestler. I always wanted people to be like, oh, that's Latin Thunder, that's Juan Fourneau, he's a pro wrestler. Oh, I can see that. Okay, even someone who's a non-fan, I did not want someone to look and say, well, I don't see it, or I can't imagine it, But again, I was someone who admired all those guys like Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas, the guys with the great physiques. One of my favorite wrestlers, though, Tommy Wildfire Rich, didn't hit the gym, wasn't a body guy, but he had just so much charisma, great on the mic, great fire in the ring. But yes, for the young guys, the Black and Brave, I know you interviewed some guys who Crotch, who helps run Black and Brave Wrestling School. That's mandatory. They have to train when they're going through the camp. And I see most of those guys, especially the ones that go through Black and Brave, they know the importance. They've been taught by Seth Rollins, hey, you have to go to the gym, and Merrick Brave, how important that is to your success. And it helps keeps you from getting injured, So I just always loved working out and pumping iron. It just happened to be something that helped me with pro wrestling. It wasn't hard for me to stay in the gym and work out, but it does keep you from getting injured as well. So,
and drugs aside, I used to look at these. I still look at. I look back at these wrestlers in the 80s and 90s that were just jacked and ripped, but then you hear all these stories where, like, literally every night they were out drinking.
Yeah.
Every night. And I think to myself, I'm like, those must have been some really good drugs to make sure, because you go and you crush 12 beers every night, you're going to get fat.
Yeah.
And it's miraculous to me to hear some of these stories.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure a lot of them were, especially in that era, they were using steroids. But they were also pumping iron pretty regularly. Even when you read the books and the different stories, that was part of their routine.
Like Flair was still working out every day. Like he'd go do these long matches. He'd be on the road. He'd drink enough booze to put you in bed for 3 days, and he'd be hitting the gym and his cardio. Like he was really well known for really good cardio.
What do you think? I think for Flair, he's a genetic freak.
I think so too.
Like I think it's a terrible movie, but there's a Bruce Willis movie out there called Unbreakable. And it's a pretty bad movie. But the whole premise is Bruce Willis is unbreakable. Like, he can't die. He walks away from a plane accident, right? And then there's another character who's very fragile. If he falls, he breaks bones.
How have I never heard of this movie before? Is this a new movie?
No, it came out maybe early 2012.
Okay.
But that premise was interesting because to me, I'm like, well, that Bruce Willis character is Ric Flair. He is a genetic freak. There's some people who don't have a lot of endurance, don't have a lot of energy, and the amount of punishment that he took in the ring, those bumps he took in the ring, the getting thrown off the top rope night after night after night, and wrestling 60 minutes, and then drinking all night, and then waking up with 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and then like he would do 500 Hindu squats in the morning, or go to the gym, or both, get on a plane, do it again, No one can do that.
No, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, and he's never had a serious injury. I mean, that's unusual. He's a genetic freak. He's so durable. Cal Ripken Jr.'s got nothing on him. When you talk about just as an athlete, he really should be. When he finally passes away, his body should be studied. So yeah.
I would imagine the training, like the weightlifting and how to actually stay in shape for a wrestler. I got to imagine CrossFit is a huge part of that, right? Or not so much. And today not back then, but today, like I look at somebody like a Seth Rollins.
Yes. He loves
to me,
CrossFit. Yep.
He's a CrossFit guy.
Yep.
One, his demeanor is a CrossFit guy. I know a lot of CrossFit people, and there's a certain CrossFit demeanor.
Really?
Yes, 100%. There's no question about it, and he's got it.
You could tell that just from
I can absolutely I could take 3 people with extremely good physiques.
Yeah.
Give me 2 minutes to just have a conversation with them, and I'd be like,
tell.
"You do CrossFit."
Well, it's your business. It's one of your businesses, right? So,
yeah.
That's interesting, though. Yeah. I mean, he definitely is a CrossFit guy at the Black and Brave Wrestling School. He's nice enough to let me work out there, even though I didn't go to the wrestling school, just because of our friendship from way back. And so I get to train there. And as someone that's always trained at the Y or Doug's gym, there's no mirrors. And that's unusual. Like,
CrossFit doesn't have mirrors.
CrossFit doesn't have mirrors.
That's why I don't go.
Exactly, right? I mean, you're just used to certain things, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't have benches. You can get creative and do different things. He doesn't have a standard bench press with a rack and all that.
Yeah.
So you can get creative and do all that stuff. But, yeah, he's big into CrossFit. When it came to the training, I remember reading this book, Tributes, by Dave Meltzer. Dave Meltzer's one of the oldest journalists.
Is he PW Insider? Does he run that?
He has the Wrestling Observer.
The Wrestling Observer.
Yeah,
That's what it is. Yeah.
He's been around a long
and
long
the guy's
time.
super smart.
Very
I'll
smart.
watch some of his stuff.
Oh,
He's in my algorithm.
Yeah, he's and a historian, a true historian too. As far as him and Jim Cornette, a lot of folks, the few people who do written history of pro wrestling. So he had a book called Tributes, and it was basically the obituaries of these wrestlers who had died, and one of them was the Junkyard Dog. And he said, if he'd had stayed in the gym, kept training, and kept his weight under control, he could have had a career into his 50s, like Flair, like a wrestler called the Crusher, who was a big star in the Midwest. And I was like, well, that's the formula. If I want to keep wrestling, because I love this, if I want to keep wrestling until I'm in my 50s, which I did, keep my weight under control, keep training, and I'm able to do that. That key simple thing of just staying in the gym. Hacksaw Jim Duggan wrestled for a long time. He still worked out. He still trained. Even if you don't necessarily look like you did in your prime, if you stay in the gym and you keep your weight under control, you can really wrestle for a long, long time. And it gave me longevity along with the mask and the gimmick. So I was thankful for that. There's a formula there. If you quit training, the great Barry Windham, an amazing wrestler, second generation, great worker, great athlete, didn't go to the gym. He wasn't a gym guy, right? Not everyone is. His body started to break down. He kind of finished up in his late 30s, early 40s because he wasn't a gym guy. He could have got an extra decade. There's lots of stories about NFL football players, the Walter Paytons, right? If they could train, the Roger Craigs. If they can train, if they stay in the gym, get their nutrition decent, you can add a lot of years to your career. So that was one thing I did. And really the last 10 years of my wrestling career since I put on my mask were the funnest, the most satisfying, and the ones where I made – independent wrestlers don't make a ton of money, but I certainly made far more money as an independent wrestler with the mask than I did before that.
You know, I think – and this was something I had to get past myself, especially when I got into my 40s. I think a lot of guys stop going to the gym in general and lifting weights because there's this part of you that realizes you can't train the way you used to train.
Nope.
And then you sometimes get down on yourself, and you really got to remind yourself, hey, I'm here in the gym. I could have the shittiest workout.
Yep.
But I'm still having a workout.
Yep.
I'm still here. I'm still doing something. And it's so hard not to get down on yourself if you feel like, well, I just kind of mailed it in. Maybe you mailed it in the gym, but you were still there in the gym doing it.
Yeah.
You're never going to be able to do those things that you used to be able to do.
Nope.
But you got to take pride in the fact that you're still banging it out. You're still blocking and tackling.
Yeah. Yeah. You're still in great shape. Doug McConaughey's still in great shape. If you stay in there, you can't do what you used to do. I get a kick out of it. To like a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. I'll hear people say, I'm in better shape than I when I was 25. What were you doing when you were 25? Nothing. Drinking beer. And
it's easy to be jacked when you're 25
Yeah.
with a little bit of effort.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's easy, but if you are already have a good little foundation going, it's not that hard to be in pretty good shape when you're in your 20s.
And when people say, well, I'm in better shape now that I'm 50 than when I was 25, it's because, well, you weren't doing anything when you were 25. You get a guy who's in the gym or a girl, and they're working out hard, and they got their nutrition dialed in, and they're in their mid to late 20s, they can look amazing. I mean, because you're in your prime, right? And you're right. We can't match that. Juan Fourneau, Latin Thunder at 52, I can't match what I used to be able to lift, the way I looked, my size. But that's okay. I'm still in good shape, and I love pumping iron, and it's healthy for us, right? You go to the doctor, they're like, man, your blood pressure's great. Man, your heart rate's great. Is it hard for you to go to the gym? Some people hate going to the gym. I love it. I'm just grateful that I like this. Some people have a hobby of smoking brisket or doing all kinds of other stuff. My hobby is working out and lifting weights. How lucky is that? I'm just fortunate, so.
Do you go to the Muscatine Y? Is that your place?
Yep. And I work out a few other places, but generally the Y. And then if I'm lucky, I'll go to Black and Brave once or twice a month with my son and work out there. And it's a great place to be because there's young wrestlers there. And I'm not a grumpy old man. I like being around young people.
Are you kind of like the wise old owl
at
this point?
A little bit. But they're so fortunate to have trained at Black and Brave because they've got Seth Rollins. To have Seth Rollins, Kobe Lopez there, what he can teach them. It's like, if you play baseball and you're hearing something from someone that played at high school, that's great. You talk to a pro who played in the MLB, it's another level. I mean, I've sat in through his training classes. The amount of insight he can give those young wrestlers, it's phenomenal, and it's great. And the fact that he came here and did that here in the Midwest, that's just amazing. When he got signed to WWE, he had to go to Florida for developmental. And I thought, we're never going to see him again. That's where wrestlers go, and they stay there, right? Tampa, Florida. Nice beaches, nice weather, good airports.
Keep your tan going. Yeah, all the things.
They all moved there and would stay there. And this guy, when he made the main roster, for him to come back to Iowa was amazing. For him to open a wrestling school, it's unheard of. I have a son. He's not allowed to be a pro wrestler. That's forbidden. But, I love my son. I want the best for him. If my son was a pro wrestler and he got signed to WWE and he said, hey, Dad, I'm going to open a wrestling school, I would be like, are you insane? I know something about this business. I know you have 2 precious days off, 2 days to rest, 2 days to recover, 2 days to do your freaking laundry even when you're on the main roster and you're starting out. 2 days to spend time with your girlfriend. you're going to spend those 2 days at a wrestling school. That's what you do when you retire. That's not what you do when you're in your prime. That's unheard of for him to do that. And so for all the young wrestlers to get to sit under that learning tree, it's a great gift. So it's amazing.
And not only that, you ain't doing that to make money.
No.
He is sinking in a bunch of his own dough to keep that thing going.
Yeah.
It's not a lucrative business
No.
to start a wrestling school. And I think that's why a lot of them either fail or they're not a great school because you simply don't have the resources.
Yeah.
So that speaks a lot about what Black and Brave is all about.
Yeah, because my trainer was Skandar Akbar, and he charged a modest fee. It was a good wrestling school. However, he was retired. It was just a little bit of supplemental income for him. But you're right. As the older you get, the more money you make. You're a business owner. What's your most valuable asset? It's your time. That's the most important thing. So for him to give his time to a wrestling school that when he's making millions in the WWE, that's really amazing. So it's been great for the Midwest. It's pretty cool.
What do you shake your head at? You look at these young guys. Is there something where you're just like, gosh, guys, quit doing that?
I'm sitting here. I wrote a book, Latin Thunder, My Journey Off the Top Rope. I wrote it in 2014. It's basically a book of my mistakes. I give a lot of grace to young people. I was pretty stupid, Joe. I remember meeting you when you were young. You were ambitious. You had a lot of energy. You were hardworking.
Also very stupid.
Well, I'm sure you did.
Yeah,
right? We're
very stupid.
We're really dumb at that age.
Yeah.
We're really immature. And we don't think long term. There were so many opportunities. I wasn't consistent when I was a young wrestler. I was always like, oh, I'm going to get in great shape, but I never stayed in shape. I wasn't willing to move somewhere to go chase my dream. I wasn't willing to move. I did move to Texas for a while, but then when things got tough, money was tight, I came back home. Harley Race opens a wrestling school in Missouri. I wasn't willing to move there. I would drive there on the weekends and train. So I just give a lot of grace to young people when they're making mistakes, because that's what made Kobe Lopez, Seth Rollins so special, was like, wow, who has that maturity at 19 years old? And he had amazing talent. Yeah, amazing talent. You can't go to the gym to become 6'2". You can't go to the gym and have movie star good looks. You can't go to the gym and just have that athletic ability he had. He had a lot of great gifts, but he worked his butt off. He was always consistent. Every time I saw him, he was getting better. Every time I saw him, he was in shape. He just did all the right things. And when he had wrestled all the best in the Quad Cities, he went and started wrestling in the Midwest in Chicago. And when he had wrestled all the best there, he went to Ring of Honor. He was comfortable being uncomfortable. That's a cliche, right? But it's true. Every time he got comfortable, even in Ring of Honor, hey, I got to leave this place. I got to go wrestle better people, other people. So that's the rare person, right? So that's why one of the reasons he's where he's at. So when I see young guys doing dumb stuff, I'm like, well, I did those same things.
Been there.
Yeah, you were talking in your other podcast about how shouldn't people use social media more? I'd be cutting promos, right?
Yeah.
Marketing well, right? You're scratching your head saying, why aren't these guys doing this, right?
Right.
And
that to me is baffling to me. If I was trying to make it on the wrestling scene right now, I would be an Instagram whore.
Yeah.
I would be on Instagram nonstop cutting promos. If I knew I had a match coming up with Latin Thunder in a week or 2 weeks, I would be talking smack about you for nonstop, and I'd be tagging you in these videos, and I would want you to be doing the same thing to me, building up a little bit of heat for this thing.
And then getting to practice that skill, right? Which you're going to need.
Why aren't they doing that?
I think laziness is too strong of a word, but I think one of the mistakes I made was I didn't make it my job. So I read this book, whatever people think of it, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, great book.
Great book. It taught me a lot. And there's some things
I need to
in there.
reread that book, but yeah.
It's a great book. And he said, who loves it more, the professional or the amateur? He said, I used to think it was the amateur, because the amateur does it for free and they do it on the weekend on their free time. He says, I was an amateur golfer. So I was like, he was talking about golf. The amateur loves the game more than the pro. He said, but then someone told me, no, you're wrong. The professional loves the game more. He's like, well, why? The professional loves it so much, he makes it their job. So if you're the indie wrestler, you might be able to give it 20 hours of your time because you still got to go work at Jimmy John's or wherever you're working at. You got to do your job. You got to rest. So now that gives you 20 hours to maybe go to the gym, to tan, to work on your promos, to do your social media, to do your marketing, to make your T-shirts, right? The professional says, I'm going to make it my job because I'm going to give it 40 hours plus the 20 hours. So I think it's a lack of time sometimes. It is a little bit of laziness, but it's also, hey, you have to make it your job. It's really hard to do. That means you're going to be broke.
Yeah, and there's going to be a ton of sacrifices. Yep. And I feel like there's a lot of people in general, not just in wrestling, not just in whatever this is here, podcasting. Yeah. You get so close right there, and it just takes that little bit of extra sacrifice, that little bit of extra time to really go after it. And quite frankly, I feel like that's kind of where I'm at, even with this show. It's like, because you can go, well, I need to spend time with the family. I need to spend time with my kids. We only have a few hours at night. And then, damn, it's already 10 o'clock. The kids are asleep. I kind of want to knock off too. And it's like, there's that little voice inside of my gut that's like, you're probably going to be up for another 45 minutes watching TV anyway.
Yep.
Trying to fall asleep. You could probably edit another reel quick. And some nights I got it and some nights I don't. And I think that right there is that razor thin difference between the guys at the top of their game on an amateur level and the guys that have made it on the pro level, no matter what it is.
Sometimes it's simply volume of work, right? Work ethic and saying, hey, I'm not going to watch Netflix. I'm going to sacrifice and do this instead. But to me, I think that was one of those key things where it was like, hey, you're giving 40 hours to your job. And if you don't make it your job, that's 40 precious hours that if you can make it full time. And for me, I had met this indie wrestler, Matt Murphy, on the road down in Missouri. And he was this broke young white guy from a trailer court in Missouri. And he lived in Muscatine for a little while, but he didn't have much money. And he says, well, I'm going to try to make this my job for a little bit, even if it's just for a short period of time. And I dismissed it right away. I just was like, there's no way. We're getting paid $50 if we're lucky to wrestle. How are you going to make this your full-time job? But he did for a period of time because he cut his expenses so low. He lived with other wrestlers, and he sold a T-shirt or two. He got creative with his thinking. I was too lazy. I wasn't willing to go there to ask that question of, instead of just instantly being like, nope, not possible. Well, how? How can I make this happen? Lenny Lane, I tell the story in the book, and I asked Lenny Lane, I'm like, he was in WCW, and he wrestled all the top stars. He didn't become a big star, but he beat Rey Mysterio for the light heavyweight title, so he had a good run. And when I met Lenny, he wrestled for us in Muscatine. I'll have to ask you about the Marty Jannetty show. Don't let me forget this.
That's wild. I got to find that tape. Anyway.
Yeah, so Lenny came down and wrestled for us, and Lenny was the first guy I met who was the same age as me and was better than me at everything. So usually I can make excuses and be like, well, I'm in better shape than that guy. Well, I'm a better high flyer than him. There was something I could point to and say, well, at least I'm better at this. Lenny was better at everything. He was a better high flyer than me. He had a better look. His gear was better. He could cut a better promo. He could wrestle lucha better than me, right? And I'm Mexican. He had a better tan than me, and I'm Mexican. So he was better than me at everything. And I'm like, how? And he was the same age. I'm like, how'd you get so good? He says, oh, there was this promoter in Cleveland. He says, he would book me all the time. The pay was crap, Juan. The pay was terrible. And I was prideful about my pay. I was like, I got to get at least $50, preferably 75 or 100. He says he paid like $20, and it was a long drive. He said, but he would let me wrestle 3 times. He says he would let me wrestle an opening match, and then I would put on a hood, wear a mask, wrestle another match, and I'd come back in the main event and do a tag. He says, and I just got better, and I would wrestle for that guy every week. So he foregoed that pay. He wasn't prideful about his pay. He was looking at the reps. I get to wrestle 3 times for this guy. Meanwhile, I'm wrestling once a month because I'm like, I need to get $50. I need to get $50. Lenny's wrestling Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and sometimes wrestling 3 times each night. At the end of the year, he had so much more experience than I was, and he was better than me at everything. So I'm sitting at home in Muscatine doing indie shows. He's in WCW. So, yeah, there's a lot of lessons there in life. I'm grateful for my journey because anytime you try to do something difficult and you run into those obstacles and that resistance and you see other peers on that same journey, you see some of them that succeed. There's a lot of lessons there, right? And I've been able to use them in other things in my life and with raising my kids. So I'm grateful for the journey. Even though I didn't get everywhere I wanted to be, it taught me a lot about life and about success and trying to do difficult things.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of going through a similar thing with this show. We're getting hired to go to like live events and, hey, we'll compensate you to be here and do your thing. And then there's other events that come up that I'm like, oh, that would be great, but I don't know. I don't even know if that's going to pay. And do we really have time to go do that? What you're saying is it could be a good event to go to anyway and go do your thing. You do so many things at no cost.
Yeah.
And you might just be one no-cost event away from some big breakthrough, and you just don't know it because you're like, if they don't give me a few bucks, I'm not gonna go. Because I think there's this internal monologue where you're like, well, that means I'm not valuable. Where that's not the case so much.
I could make this amount of money doing this or doing that. Well, but Arn Anderson said he quit his job at a deli like the first chance he got. Hey, do you want to go to the Florida territory and work full time 5 days a week? He's like, yes. He didn't say how much am I going to get paid. He didn't say where am I going to live. He just said, yes, I want to be a wrestler. I don't want to be cutting meat for the rest of my life. I was always a little bit more like, well, what about this or what about that? And that's not the way to go. And everyone's journey is different, but with wrestlers especially, it's like, well, what are you getting out of the match? Are you getting an opportunity to wrestle someone better than you? Are you getting a chance to wrestle a veteran, someone that's experienced? Those lessons, that one match, it's worth 10 matches if you're wrestling the right person. I wrestled a guy who was a veteran, second generation wrestler. He wasn't a famous guy, Tretch Phillips Jr., but that one match, I learned so much. And it was worth the drive. It was south of Kansas City. It was worth the small pay just because of that experience, what I learned from it, It just, all these lessons I kept hearing about, but all of a sudden in that match I experienced it, where he said, Juan, it's not just about moves. I had heard that many times, but that was the moment I got it, that light bulb. Oh, I've heard this a dozen times, but now I understand because we just had a match and this veteran guy is explaining what I did wrong. Now I get it, okay? But that match didn't pay me very well, but it's still one of the most important matches I had. So I wrestled at the Sportatorium. I got paid $40. $40 to drive to Dallas, Texas.
God, that's just wild to me.
Yeah.
I mean, but there again, you're doing it for free at that point.
Exactly, yeah. But it was my first match, and it's the only time I wrestled at the Sportatorium. One of the most legendary, arenas in wrestling where the Von Erichs wrestled. It's in the Iron Claw
That's
movie.
pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's a piece of Texas wrestling history, and a lot of those guys, I think their arena shut down around 98, 2000 or so. There's less and less. There's literally not many people alive anymore now that can say I wrestled at the Sportatorium. So was it? It's not the $40. There's more to it than that. What are you going to get out of the match? And there are times where, as a wrestler, you say, "Hey, maybe that match isn't worth it. It's too long of a drive. That promoter's terrible. The opponent's terrible. It's not a good idea. I'd be better off driving to Black and Brave and getting a good workout in the ring, watching some tapes." Watching 10 hours of wrestling, that would be more valuable than driving to Nebraska to wrestle some horrible opponent, So you got to think about that.
I wonder, is there an opportunity for a good manager on the indie scene?
Like a manager like Bobby the Brain Heenan?
Yeah, like a Paul Heyman, like a Jim Cornette, is there an opportunity for Latin Thunder or, to to come out and manage a whole stable of different guys and almost help develop their promo skills and connect the dots with them putting out some social media videos and certainly being present out there by the ring. To me, if not knowing much, if I'm an indie wrestler and I've got some raw talent, but that's all I got right now is some raw talent and I'm a good athlete. If I had a guy come to me and say, hey, I'm freaking Latin Thunder. I've been around this thing forever here. And you're going to split your take with me, and I'm going to make sure that we start working you up the ranks. I'm going to make sure that you're relevant out there for John Q. Public, because John Q. Public is who we're trying to reach here, right?
Yep.
You have the indie wrestling scene has like this close group of fans that if there's a show, they're going to probably be there.
Yep.
But beyond that, you don't have a ton of families just randomly going, you know what? I saw on Facebook there's an SCW show going on at Bluegrass. Let's go check it out for the first time ever. That's not happening right now. Not as much as I'm sure all the promotions would love it to be.
No, you're exactly right.
And
I think we're missing some of those general audience fans that you used to have back in the day.
You absolutely are, because as the consumer is not getting a good enough reason to go. I'll tell you, I really, really wanted to go to the SCW show on Saturday. I really wanted to go because Hollister, who's been on the show, I knew he was going to be there, and I wanted to watch him. But we just had a few other things going on.
Sure.
Nothing huge, nothing we couldn't have gotten out of, but there wasn't enough pull for the family to go, and I would have loved to go. What's the missing ingredient? I think managers can help definitely tell a story that's not being told.
I think managers could. Yeah, I think that we do have some really good manager in SCW that does add a lot of value to it. But you know, that's an intriguing thought, because you're almost talking about like a shoot. Like Paul Ellering supposedly did manage the Road Warriors. Like he would book their hotel room. He developed them. He
you
the
know
one who
all the
gave them
things.
advice.
It's like, here, you need to work on cutting this promo. We're going to cut a promo here, and you need to get your ass into the gym, stay in good shape. I'm going to make sure that we've got a place to stay. I'm going to connect these dots here, and I'm also going to be your advocate to the promoter as well, to be like, hey, man, like, I got this idea, this angle we could work on, and sometimes simply presenting the idea is all you need to do to have somebody go, oh, well, that's great, because I had a million other things I was thinking about. Let's do that then too. I got to imagine some of these promoters are open to some of those ideas. They're trying to make sure that there's there's concessions and there's all this other stuff that they're dealing with. The indie scene, there's plenty of talent right here.
Yes.
Right here in this area. There's venues, there's promotions, there's wrestlers, there's all the things. It's missing the reason for the normal parents who maybe like to watch Raw on TV to go and check that out. And I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something there to get this a lot bigger. I mean, let's face it. Seth Rollins is from Davenport, freaking Iowa, right?
Yep.
Like, you get to hear from Davenport, Iowa, with the top heel in the business.
Yep.
The top guy. And it's like, why the hell isn't there a 2,500 people watching an indie promotion in Davenport, Iowa? Like, I don't understand it. And I think what happens is, I'm kind of on my soapbox here, and I apologize.
Right, yeah. No.
But you kind of get into this, we're so busy doing the work that we're not working on the building up the promotion. Every business owner runs into that. I run into that at Treadmill Heroes. Yeah. Like, you're either working in the business or on the business. And I think a wrestling promotion is no different. It doesn't mean it's a bad promotion. But when you got everybody just working in it and not on it, you know what I mean?
No, I think you bring up a lot of good points. And, I mean, that's something to think about and for people to listen to, promoters, because I do think that general audience is harder to capture these days, and there's a lot of money there. There's a lot of money, and when I turned heel on Corn Boy and started the process of let's lead up to our hair versus mask match where I lose the mask, one of the last things Merrick Brave said to me, Juan, we don't have to do this. You don't have to turn heel. He loved the character because he knew kids liked it. He knew families liked it. He knew that it was something that general audiences liked. I spoke English. I spoke Spanish. I could get Hispanic fans to consider going, and Hispanic fans love wrestling, but a lot of them didn't know about independent wrestling. I also was from Muscatine, so it was a little bit different than just people from Davenport. So he loves, because he wanted that general audience, you know. So I think they're aware of it, and they work hard at it, but it's tough. It is tough, and when you got a million things going, like you said, hey, we've got these angles, we've got these wrestlers, but I think SCW Pro is one of the best I've ever seen, if not the best, at getting that general audience and understanding, hey, we can't just be about moves. We can't just be about, getting into the details of wrestling. We can't be so nerdy. We have to appeal to the general audience fan, and we have to keep our venues happy. Everyone needs to make money. But yeah, that's a challenge. You know, I actually miss those days of going to the Wharton Fieldhouse and watching wrestling as a fan, and there was such a general audience there. It wasn't just people who loved wrestling. It was a night of entertainment for them.
You bet.
But some of that is times have changed. There's more opportunities, more things you can do now for entertainment as a family, and we are more busy as families. I got 2 kids. I got a senior in high school and a sophomore. And for whatever reason, right, there's always something going on. Yeah. But even when we did the mask versus hair mask, I was talking to the booker, and I was trying – I really wanted to have it be a big event, you know, and so did they. They wanted a success. And I said, I'm talking to some fans, and I'm talking to some people, because we announced, Corn challenged me to a mask versus hair match, and we announced it. This is the next match. And right away, people were telling me, I know you're not going to lose it. I know you're not going to lose it. I said, that's not good. I said, people are telling me they don't think I'm going to lose the mask. He says, well, I think that'll be good because it'll surprise them. And I said, it'll surprise them when they read about it on Twitter at home when they didn't buy a ticket.
Bingo.
I said, we have to let them know that there's a chance something's going to happen. Either this guy who's got this great head of hair is going to lose his mask, get it shaved, what a spectacle, or this guy's going to lose his mask, and that's going to be a big thing. No matter what, they need to know something's going to happen, and I can't miss it. And we were getting close where people were like, oh, I know you're not going to lose it. They have to feel, because we need to get that general audience intrigued enough to say, it's Saturday night. I got 3 or 4 other things I could do. I got plenty of money. The $10 ticket's not the dilemma. Yeah. It's my time.
It's like, why? There. Why do I want to go?
Yep.
And a quick clip on Instagram of showing a move and a quick bump, and then show this Saturday. I'm sorry, that's not good enough for John Q. Public.
No.
That does not get my ass out of the seat to, let's face it, campaign to the wife.
Yeah.
And say, I really think, because here's why we should go do this.
Yeah.
Or if nothing else, here's why you should have a girls' night, and I'll gladly take the kids to go do this. But we're not going to solve that problem now. But I feel like it's right there. Like I feel like it's right there. Let me check in with Katie here real quick. How are we doing on time, Katie? How long have we been going here? 109.
We're a couple windbags.
Okay, well I want to make sure because we got a thing we got to get to here in about 15 minutes, which I don't want to cut this thing short. But
Marty Jannetty, you went to that independent show in Muscatine. I put on that show.
I did. And not only that, but at the time, I had a public access TV show.
Oh, really?
Called The Joe Show. That's my original host T-shirt.
Wow.
That a buddy of mine found, and I had it framed. But, yeah, MPW Cable, back in the day, I had a show called The Joe Show for 3 years where we would record on camcorders, on VHS tape. We we would edit it with the reel of the dials,
Yeah.
and we found ourselves at that show, me and my buddy Randy, who ran the camera and did all the editing, we were just down there.
Yeah.
And somehow I ended up in the ring interviewing Marty Jannetty after the event.
Wow.
Or potentially before, I can't remember.
You know, this is coming back to me because, like I said, I promoted the show. Me and Derek Bates.
That's
so
wild.
You had to have said, "Hey, Juan, can I interview?"
There had,
Marty?
yeah, I didn't just hop up
Yeah.
in there, you know. And so you probably saw a young kid and a
Yeah.
camera guy, and
Yeah,
go
sure,
ahead. And for the life of me, I have no idea where that tape went.
Yeah,
or,
no.
but I do remember.
He was a big star.
Oh, yeah, and I've always been a wrestling fan ever since I was a little kid. And so I do remember having the opportunity to do that, and I just completely crapped it down.
Did
my
you really?
leg.
You didn't do that well?
No, I didn't do good at all. Big, I didn't put enough thought into it.
Yeah.
And you know what? I got a little starstruck.
Of course.
You know, I'm like, man, this is Marty Jannetty here.
Yeah,
I mean,
one half of the Rockers.
yeah, it's not, it's not like I'm interviewing the Ultimate Warrior here, but I mean, I'm interviewing Marty Jannetty.
Yeah,
I mean,
and-
like, this is a big deal.
And you probably don't remember, but he was in pretty good shape.
Yes,
I
he
remember
was.
him showing up that day, and that was one thing too. As a fan, as a wrestler, when I met Robert Gibson of the Rock and Roll Express, he wasn't a big dude on TV when he's wrestling the Road Warriors. But then I meet him in person, and I'm like, damn, this guy's jacked. And Marty was the same way. He didn't look like a big dude, but he was in really good shape at that time. He was trying to get a contract for WCW. I think he did. But no, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's awesome that you did that. I remember that show. That was actually probably the best drawing show we had as far as the amount of fans. So yeah, Ultimate Warrior. You mentioned him. You were a big fan of him? I was a big fan of Warrior.
Yeah, I think every kid was just a fan of the intensity, the muscles, the
Yeah.
face paint, all the neon colors.
Yeah.
I mean, it just all worked. I will tell you, when WrestleMania 6 happened, where it was Hogan versus Warrior, we had to drive out to the country because one of my dad's friends had a giant satellite dish.
Oh yeah,
And that was the only way you could watch the pay-per-view.
yeah.
And I remember it was billed as a career versus career match,
Yeah.
because
Title versus title. Too,
title
also,
versus
yeah.
title, right? And because they kind of build it where, because later in life you find out Hogan had to go film a movie or something,
like that,
so
yeah.
he had to go away. And I remember when the Ultimate Warrior won, and I remember sobbing
Yeah.
whole way home because I'm never gonna see Hulk Hogan again.
Oh, so you were cheering for Hogan?
Well, yeah, I was like,
You were a
yeah.
Hulkamaniac.
I just remember just like sobbing, and I was so sad, and it's a great memory to look back on now, because you as you get older, you know. As sometimes they say, when you get older, your heart dies a little bit, right?
Yeah.
The magic starts to dissipate
yeah.
a little bit, and yeah, that was a special memory. I've got all kinds of those little wrestling moments.
Yeah, I was cheering for Warrior. So when he moved out of the leg drop, and then he beat him, I just was amazed because Hogan didn't lose at that time, right? He never
Yeah.
did the job. So that was a big moment, and I was cheering for Warrior, and I wanted him to win. I spent more money on the Ultimate Warrior than I did on any other pro wrestler. I paid to buy tickets. I bought T-shirts. So
Do you still have some old Warrior stuff?
I
sitting
don't
around?
have
Man,
anything, but I
God,
remember,
why didn't we hold on to that stuff?
yeah, we didn't know, right? Well, I've never been much of a collector, so I never took care of my stuff. But yeah, I saw him wrestle Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig at the Wharton Fieldhouse. I saw him wrestle Dino Bravo. But yeah, I was a big fan of the Warrior. I always had I went through stages where, hey, Tommy Rich was my first favorite wrestler, and then Tony Atlas. And but yeah, Warrior was definitely a big star for me, and I loved the physique. And again, back in the days at the gym, he was one of the favorites of all the guys who pumped iron and lifted weights and worked out. So what'd you think of Hogan? I hate to be the journalist too. What'd you think? How'd you feel when Hogan passed away? I mean, legend, right? If you were a Hulkamaniac.
Yeah, so I remember where I was at when I found out Princess Diana died. I remember where I was at during 9/11, and I remember where I was at when Hogan died. Yeah, I was mowing a rental property.
Were you?
Actually? Yeah, and I was immediately overcome with just a kind of a wave of reality. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, like, everyone dies. and life goes on. And I got hit with a slap of reality, and I got hit with a real wave of nostalgia.
Very.
I really did. Like I mean, like my dad, he's still around. We see each other every day. We're good buddies. But I immediately thought of my dad just because, like, father-son wrestling thing. Like, and I went right to his shop, and I was like, Hogan just died. He goes, Hulk Hogan? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, man. And you could tell he was like, he was bummed too.
Those memories. Did you see him wrestle at the Wharton Fieldhouse when he wrestled Flair?
I did. I've referenced that before. We were there. I was there with my dad and my grandpa Louie, and I was really young. I just have little flashes of memory. Nothing specific sticks out, but I know I was there, and I know it was Hogan, and I know it was versus Flair.
Yep. I was 18 years old when I saw that match. So, yeah, you would have been pretty young too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the few times. It was the only time I remember that the Wharton Fieldhouse was sold out in advance. So like it was sold out, you couldn't get a ticket from my memory. And then the other thing was I was cheering for Flair. I was a WCW guy. I loved Flair, loved the NWA. But even I could not help. I was amazed at I'd never heard that arena so loud. And when he cupped his hand, you could feel that side of the ring cheer, and then he would go to the other side, and you could feel that.
It doesn't come through on TV like that. You can get a sense for it. And you know what I hope? I really hope and pray that guys like Seth Rollins, when they do retire and when they do move on to the next stage of whatever they're going to do in this world, they don't forget about those little things. Like, because like I just told you, I don't remember a damn thing about that match.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but I just remember the feeling of getting to be in that arena when they were there.
Yeah, especially at that age. Oh, my God.
And think of quite frankly, the probably millions at this point of people that somebody like a Seth Rollins has affected, to where all they're going to want to do is just come up and say, I remember when.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything about it, but I remember how you made me feel, and it felt really good. And that's got to be tough to navigate through that right now when you're just constantly having people come up. But, man, those little things matter. If you can affect somebody's life even for just a second, just a second in a positive way, that's a big deal.
That's pretty cool. And, you know, Rollins' career has been amazing, and kind of going back a little bit to that who loves it more, the amateur or the professional, he's like obviously the best to come out of our area, right? It's not even close. I've never met anyone that loves pro wrestling more than Seth Rollins.
That's great.
I love pro wrestling. I don't love it as much as he does. That's, I think, what drives his hard work, his ambition. I've never met anyone that loves it more than him. So that means a lot as far as what's driven his success. And, you know, one thing I'm very thankful, I created a character. Iowa PBS did a little interview with me at Des Moines, and it's on YouTube, and it was shared on Iowa PS Facebook, and there were comments, lots of really nice comments. And I remember one from Muscatine, a kid I didn't know. He said, growing up with so little in Muscatine, getting to see Latin Thunder always left us wanting more. Such nice memories. And like you said, I don't have WWE WrestleMania matches. I don't have like, hey, I made millions. But that comment, holy cow, that meant a lot.
Yeah.
To know that for a young poor Hispanic kid who didn't have a lot to really enjoy or love or look forward to, that me having an entertaining match in his hometown that he got to see left him wanting more. It meant a lot to him. I was like, hey, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was a good feeling to know. You know, that's a little, I don't like that word legacy a lot either, but it was a nice little legacy that, hey, all that hard work, all that sacrifice, yeah, maybe everything I dreamed of didn't come true, but I entertained fans. I've shown young people, especially Latinos, I'm very proud of my Mexican-American heritage. Hey, you know, you can do some cool things. You don't have to just do this because you're from Muscatine. And the journey I went through, you know, hey, it's unique and it's different. You know, take a look at it sometime. Don't be afraid to ask me questions. I learned a lot from it. And there's a lot of lessons from there. And just because you're from Muscatine and Hispanic or Mexican-American doesn't mean you can't have a cool life or do some unique things. So
let's do a little housekeeping here before we wrap
Yes.
up. One, pimp the book a little bit.
It's on Amazon. It's a Kindle book. You can order it also, get a paperback version. I wrote it quite a while ago, but, I'm proud of it, and I'm just proud that I wrote a book and finished the book. That's not an easy process. So it's available, Latin Thunder, My Journey Off the Top Rope.
I'm going to check that out.
Cool.
I am going to check that out.
Yeah.
And I'm going to read it because I'm super interested in it. And also, you know what I want to do?
Yes.
I want to do a viewing party
of
an upcoming event, and I'd love for you, and I want to live stream it, and I'd love for you to be on the panel.
Sure.
I think that would be so fun to get a couple wrestlers together, and we nerd out on some wrestling beforehand. We have a little bit of a watch party. We go, and that's the thing. I need to find a bar or somewhere in the Quad Cities that will actually live stream a PLE. As far as I know, there's no wrestling bars in this area.
I know Lopez does. They're related to Seth Rollins also, but Lopez Pizza does some really cool stuff with wrestling.
Do they really?
Yeah.
So will they show the live events and stuff?
I'm not sure, but that's the first place that I thought of.
I'm gonna find out.
Yeah, and they got great food, great pizza, and they're big, huge wrestling fans in general also. So, yeah, that's the only place that I instantly thought of. So, yeah.
You got anything else you want to promote, Juan?
I got a website, LatinThunder1.com, LatinThunder1.com. It's just got my writing, some of the things I wrote over the years, old blog posts, things I wrote about some people in Muscatine as well. Again, Mexican-Americans, Hispanics who inspired me. Just being a Muscatine kid, growing up in Muscatine, going to Jefferson School, and wrestling stuff, lessons I've learned. So, yeah, I'm proud of that website. I write a little bit for Hola America, English-Spanish magazine and newspaper. So I'm hoping to do more writing. I'm hoping to I wrote a fictional book. I'm going to try really hard this winter to get it self-published and finish editing it. So, yeah, I'm still dreaming. I'm still trying to do things. That's why it was nice to see you, Joe, because you got so much energy. You got a lot of stuff going on, and I like to be around people like that, because
Thank you.
We're not done dreaming, right? We're not done doing stuff. And I don't know, just pumping iron, lifting weights. There's all kinds of cool stuff out there in the world.
There is.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is just the beginning here. I want to reconnect with you here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it'd be super fun to just keep this going, and certainly you're a wealth of information. We didn't even scratch the surface on all this stuff, but I'm going to check out the book. We're going to revisit this, and thanks for spending so much time over here.
Thanks for inviting me, man. What a cool place,
Yeah.
Comic books, wrestling. Hey, that's awesome. And bodybuilding, lifting weights, pumping iron. That's good stuff, right? We love that.
Juan, I love you. Latin Thunder, everybody. Check them out, and we'll catch you next time right here on Neoplex Wrestling.